According to a report on foreign investment by the Foreign Investment Agency under the Ministry of Planning and Investment, in 2017, 115 countries and territories have investment projects in Vietnam, led by countries in Asia such as Japan, South Korea. European companies are small in number, but the investment field is quite large, in which three sectors that attract more European investors are manufacturing, electricity distribution, and real estate. European investors are present in 54 out of 63 localities of the country, mainly in large economic centers and localities with favorable infrastructure conditions. European businesses contribute a considerable part to the economic development of Vietnam. Recent survey of EuroCham shows that more than 950 members of the association are optimistic about the business and investment climate in Vietnam in 2017 and want to continue the investment expansion of businesses here. This result shows the expectation and appreciation of European enterprises on the efforts of the government of Vietnam to improve the business environment in the past years and the prospects for business development in 2018 when the Vietnam-EU Free Trade Agreement (EVFTA) officially comes into force.
Greetings from Sharing Vietnam on VTC10 NetViet. This year, 2018, is a very important year for the European and also Vietnamese enterprises when the EVFTA is expected to go into effect. So how do the European enterprises assess the business environment in Vietnam and the expectation for the EVFTA? In today's program, we have a conversation with Mr. Hovat, the co-chairman of EuroCham, on this topic. So thank you for joining us. The first question is, can you share with us about the assessment of the European enterprises operating in Vietnam about the business environment in Vietnam?
Thank you very much for the question and the time. Actually, officially, EuroCham has about 950 members at the moment, but we assume that we have about 2,000 or 3,000 companies operating from Europe. Concerning the business climate index, we have business climate index among our members. The rank is at the moment, I think, 77 points out of 100. The highest peak was last year, 2016, that was last year. The 77 is last year, 2016 was 85. But still, it's a very, very positive number, and we see that most of our companies are looking into the future. You know, the ease of doing business list from World Bank, Vietnam has ranked 14 places up, so it's 68. We do have a lot of work with the government at the ACAPR committee, which is the advisory council, and we see that a lot of regulation is implemented in order to help the businesses to make business easier in Vietnam.
This year, the 10th edition of the White Book was introduced in Vietnam. So if compared with the previous years, what are the changes in the business environment in Vietnam that the European enterprises community has seen so far?
We do have a lot of issues, and of course we are having issues which are remained from last year on the White Book. What I believe is that, and what I see in the last year, I'm co-chairman of EuroCham since last March, and the attitude of the government, the openness of the government was improving in the last year. I think the Vietnamese government is taking very seriously to listen to the businesses, and that's why we are a member of this advisory council to the Prime Minister and to the Ministry Government Office. And what we see is that when we are channeling our advocacy topics to the government, we can get easier response, we can have the dialogue, and then hopefully we can sort out all those issues what we are facing day by day and talking with the ministries and the stakeholders in the government.
Do you think that with the participation of the European companies in Vietnam, the business environment and also the competitiveness of Vietnam will be improved?
A very interesting point what one of our executive committee member made at the panel discussion today at the White Book launch. He's the chairman of Ericsson. And Ericsson was the first company in Vietnam. Just a concrete example. I don't want to make, a commercial for the company, but they were the first one who provided GSM technology and then mobile G3, G4, and they are planning to do the G5. And you can be sure that how much internet and communication helped Vietnam to improve the livelihood and the welfare of the people, not only businesses but the average people. It was really helping the development of the socio-economic plans of the country. I believe we are bringing a lot of sustainable solution for you. I mean, Europe is leading in green technologies. We are putting a lot of effort to show the Vietnamese what we can offer in terms of green energy, in terms of smart cities, in terms of sustainable buildings, because I think environmental issues are very, very important. Climate change, Vietnam is a very vulnerable country. I think we are bringing a lot of corporate social responsibility, transparency and standards, which I mentioned to you. To meet the standards is important to become the member of the global supply chain. And I think it's very important because Vietnam is opening up, and you have to be sure that through the open up, your economy is going to grow and your SME sector is going to be more and more developed and can meet the challenge what is coming up with an opening market of the country.
Although the world economy as well as Vietnam's economy is forecasted to slow down in the coming time, EuroCham surveys show that the majority of European businesses in Vietnam are still optimistic and said they will continue to strengthen investment in Vietnam. Accordingly, 62.3% of European business representatives rated their current business situation in Vietnam as excellent and good. About 70% of European businesses are optimistic about the business environment in Vietnam in the coming time, with 11.6% of respondents saying great and 58% of respondents being good.
European companies in Vietnam invest a lot in the industry, not only textile and shoes, but in many different sectors. It's also very often small and medium-sized companies from Europe investing here. It's contributing to sustainable developments, and it's also a lot of Europeans invest here to re-export to Europe. It's really connecting the Vietnamese economy and the European economy.
With the general positive macroeconomic environment in Vietnam, as well as these trade agreements such as the EUFTA, the AEC, that we're going to see more European investment in Vietnam, and that will be, a lot of it will be in the manufacturing sector, perhaps in electronics as well. And these new policies which encourage particularly the tax incentives will encourage companies that are already established in Vietnam to expand their businesses and for new companies to come into Vietnam.
After many years, members of EuroCham maintain a positive view about Vietnam and business activities in the country. However, Vietnam will also need more measures to improve the investment environment to attract more European businesses to Vietnam to invest and expand production in the context of the FTA between Vietnam and the EU taking effect in the near future.
So when the EVFTA is in effect, what impact do you think it has on the trade between Vietnam and the European countries?
The growth of Vietnamese economy in 2020 and 25 and 30 will be largely affected by the EVFTA if it will be in place. What I mean by that, it's going to be like extra 2.5% of growth in 2020, extra more than 4% in 2025, and extra more than 4% in 2030. It's something like 6, 7, and 7 billion extra in euros to the Vietnamese economy. So I think it's a very, very important part. What the EVFTA can bring, I think another issue, it's going to bring a lot of attention to Vietnam. So when we have a debate in the parliament and it is ratified, and then the companies know they're going to be more eager to come to Vietnam, I think it's very, very important. So it's not only we are easing the business and the investment among Europe and Vietnam, but we are giving a very strong signal to the European companies that this is the country you have to consider to move. And you know, as Europe is trying to make a region-to-region approach, EU between ASEAN, I think Vietnam could be one of the entry point, and I think the Vietnamese government is putting a lot of effort to become an entry point and a gate to ASEAN for European companies. At the moment it's Singapore more likely, because Singapore is the most important, but Vietnam now is the second most important trading partner in ASEAN.
Could you share with us about the expectation of the European enterprises for the implementation of the EV FTA?
The most important that it has to be implemented. So it's the deal is very nice. It's a very ambitious text what we have in the draft, and implementation will be the key factor. How fast it will be implemented and how much it can affect. You know, as I mentioned to you, legal frame is one issue. Implementation of the legal frame is another issue. I think what they are looking for is no trade barriers, less tariffs. You will have a predictable legal system, which is very important, well, I think the Vietnamese will have the same benefit, Vietnamese companies, to come to Europe. I believe that the standards of production in Vietnam will be risen. I believe that it's going to be good for SMEs in Vietnam, because if they are raising the standard, they can become the part of the global supply chain, which I think very, very important in order to make Vietnam more competitive. And it's important for our companies to have supplier in Vietnam, so then you can buy, if you do a production in Vietnam, you can buy from Vietnamese SMEs whatever you need for running your industry. So I think it's a lot of positive things that's coming out of the FTA.
In your opinion, what should the companies of Vietnam and European countries do in order to fully utilize the advantages and also the opportunities from the EV FTA?
I think one is important issue is to talk to your decision maker. So EuroCham was traveling to Brussels. We met President of the Commission, 4 commissioners, because we wanted to tell the politicians, the decision makers in Europe, that this is an important deal for European businesses, to make sure that when they are making decisions, they understand and they know that it's important for business. I think the Vietnamese businesses should do the same thing to their decision maker in the National Assembly or in the government or in the party in Vietnam. I think that's very important. The second important issue is that EuroCham will be kind of a watchdog of the implementation of the FTA. So we will go on to advocate our members' interests to the government even after the EV FTA is in place. If there is some shortcomings or misunderstanding or something is not implemented fully, then we will raise the questions, and we are trying to solve the problems. I mean, EuroCham, as you will see the white book, we are not only complaining to the government that we don't like that or we don't like this regulation or we have problem with this decree, but we are trying to provide solution at the same time. So I think an ongoing dialogue between business, Vietnamese and European, but at the same time to the politicians in Brussels and in Hanoi or in Vietnam to help the free trade agreement implemented 100%, because this is only a frame, you know. To make it happen, you need the businesses. Otherwise, if there are no businesses using the free trade agreement, it's for nothing. So I think we are going to play a very important role in the future.
Once again, thank you for joining us and for your sharings today.
Thank you very much.
And that's all we have for this episode of Shang Vietnam today. For comment and feedback, don't hesitate to write to us at shangvietnam@netvietv.net. Thank you for watching and goodbye for now.